It was my first time visiting this theater, a small, independent venue tucked away on a quiet street. The movie I'd come to see, a cult thriller, had been sold out for days, so I was thrilled when I managed to snag a last-minute ticket. The attendant at the counter handed me a slip with overflow room printed in faded ink. "What's that?" I asked, puzzled. She barely looked up from her phone. "Extra seating. Theater's full," she mumbled, waving me toward a hallway at the far end of the lobby. The hallway was narrower and darker than I expected, lined with doors that were all unmarked. The sound of muffled chatter and laughter from other screening rooms faded as I walked further. Finally, I came to a door with peeling paint and pushed it open. The room on the other side was nothing like a regular theater. It was small and unkempt, with a faint mildew smell hanging in the air. Rows of mismatched chairs were arranged haphazardly, facing a cracked, discolored wall that served as a makeshift screen. A lone projector, humming faintly, hung from the ceiling, casting shaky images onto the wall. No one else was inside, which felt odd for a sold-out show. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I settled into a chair near the back, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. The film started, and for a while it seemed normal, until I noticed something strange. The dialogue felt wrong. It was slightly out of sync, almost as if someone had spliced in extra lines. Occasionally, I thought I heard faint whispers layered over the soundtrack. I glanced around, expecting to find someone else reacting to the oddities, but I remained alone. As I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, the projector began to flicker, briefly casting shadows that seemed to move in ways they shouldn't. My unease grew, but I told myself it was an old projector and left it at that. I was determined to see the film through, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't really alone in that room. Halfway through the movie, the oddities became harder to dismiss. During one particularly tense scene, I noticed something chilling. The shadows on the cracked wall didn't match the movements of the characters on screen. At first, I thought it was a glitch in the projection, but then the shadows grew more distinct, taking on human-like shapes. One of them appeared to lean forward, as if peering out into the audience. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. My eyes darted to the back of the room, where the projector whirred softly. The shadows couldn't be mine. They moved even when I stayed perfectly still. I tried to rationalize it. Perhaps it was the old equipment, or some quirk of the room's design, but the growing sense of unease was impossible to ignore. Then the whispers started again, louder this time. They didn't seem to come from the film. They surrounded me, filling the tiny room with unintelligible murmurs. My heartbeat quickened as I realized the voices weren't coming from the speakers. They were coming from somewhere behind me. I froze, too terrified to turn around. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, and I thought I could make out faint, disjointed words. "Why, here, leave." My hands gripped the edge of my chair as I forced myself to glance over my shoulder. The room was empty, but the door I'd entered through was slightly ajar, creaking faintly as if someone had just slipped out. Summoning my courage, I stood up and moved toward the door, hoping to find someone who could explain the strange occurrences. As I stepped into the hallway, the air felt heavier, the silence oppressive. I was about to turn back when I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. A figure disappearing around the corner at the end of the hall. Determined to find out what was going on, I followed the figure, my footsteps echoing unnaturally in the narrow hallway. Each step felt like a mistake, but something compelled me to keep going. The hallway twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the theater than seemed possible. I passed a series of doors, all locked, before finally coming to another unmarked one that was slightly ajar. I pushed it open cautiously. The room inside was eerily similar to the one I'd come from. Same mismatched chairs, same faint mildew smell, but there was something different. A cluster of monitors lined one wall, showing grainy black and white footage of various parts of the theater. One screen displayed the very room I'd just been in. empty now except for my abandoned chair. My stomach churned as I scanned the monitors. One of them showed a live feed of the hallway I'd just walked through. A shadowy figure stood at the far end, unmoving, as if waiting for me to notice. Before I could react, the lights flickered and the figure was gone. A creak from behind me made my blood run cold. I turned slowly, my heart hammering, and found myself face to face with the man I'd seen on the monitor. He was wearing a theater uniform, though it looked old and frayed, and his face was obscured by shadows. "This area is off limits," he said, his voice calm but menacing. Panicking, I rushed out of the room and back through the winding hallway, every turn feeling longer than the last. My pulse raced as I finally pushed through the door leading into the lobby. The girl at the counter glanced up, startled by my disheveled appearance. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "Who's in charge of the overflow room?" I blurted out. She frowned. "Overflow room? There's no such thing." Confused and alarmed, I turned to point toward the hallway I'd come from. But instead of the door I'd entered through, there was only a blank wall, smooth and unmarked except for a small plaque that read, "No entry." The air felt heavier as I stood there, unable to explain what had just happened. Without another word, I left the theater, haunted by the realization that I'd stepped into a place I was never meant to be.